So, last time around, we managed to do some critical repairs in the oxygen production plant, and for our hard work, we were rewarded with a level 3 keycard, which now brings us back into the central hub, because there is one final area that we haven't visited yet, the spaceport. Now, there is a very good reason why I never even ventured down to the spaceport door in previous walkthroughs of the central hub, and that's because there is a level 3 lock on the door, which we can only just now open.
Access granted. Releasing lock.
Now, right off the bat, we definitely see a welcoming sign in the spaceport here that there is no dangerous fog. And that seems to be due to the fact that someone has already activated the ventilation control device. So we're not going to worry about being attacked by ghosts just yet. And it also seems like we are safe from any monsters in the closet. Just got a trio of spacesuits in here. Actually, somewhat familiar spacesuits. I think we saw a ghost wearing one of these before. As well as a whole plethora of batteries. Along with that, we also have what appears to be a set of, broken turnstiles. Or at least ticketing gates. And a dead end. Yeah, looks like a track. And I guess they don't want us just walking down the track. So I guess we're going to have to see if there's some way to get a train down to us. Now in the crew room here, nothing really grabs our attention right off the bat. See something here about a transport system, warning us also not to use the controls without authorization. But at this point, we really don't have any other choice of action. Thankfully, the controls are pretty simple.
Start the linear transport.
And quick as a whip, the train is now here. Looks like there is a passenger waiting for us on board. Still find it a bit questionable that the translation decided to go with linear transport. I mean, it's very literal. It is definitely just a straight line from point A to point B.
We stopped here to refuel our shuttle. Do you want to use a linear? This is the remote device from the crew room. I can operate this. May I ask you for a favor? I dropped a pendant with a locket at the space harbor just now. I looked all over for it, but could not find it. If you see it, can you bring it to me? Thank you.
So we meet another member of the Russian crew, and she is nice enough to offer us assistance in getting down to the space harbor, as long as we keep an eye out for her missing pendant. Now, she is back in the crew room, and all we have to do is call her to get her to start up the linear transport.
You are heading towards the harbor. I will activate the linear.
Now departing. Please remain seated.
Sadly, our journey along in the linear transport is pretty not picturesque.
Now arriving at the spaceport.
But it is a very quick trip all around. So from the spaceport to the space harbor, things do get a little bit more noisy. I assume that's because there is some type of ventilation already going on, though the controls on the wall seem to be a bit broken. Also, while we are given a number of places to go currently, the safest bet is always to start in the monitor room. As per usual, there is going to be some danger ahead, and it's always good to be prepared. Now, while this area seems a bit long and imposing, in reality, it's not that big. Most of where we're going to be focused is down at the space harbor itself, though, well, we want to go down the line here with the monitors. Because at the ticketing gate here, well, it doesn't seem like there's much initially, but you might have already noticed the green glowing spot on the floor.
Where did he put the food? There's no food anywhere. Kevin, Nora, all gone. What the director says is true? The red stone? Does it really grant wishes? With a sufficient sacrifice.
So we see a small snippet of an argument between two people over the scarce resources left on the facility here. One of the names did sound familiar, Nora. I think that was spoken by the astronaut that we found on the lunar surface. Outside of that, the ticketing gate is, well, pretty uninteresting. Likewise, in the crew room, there isn't too much to see, though we can eavesdrop on the female astronaut.
I will pray for your safety.
Though in the end, she just keeps on repeating about the fact that she will wait for someone to return.
I will pray for your safety.
Yeah, the real crux of the spaceport is down here at the space harbor. At the ticketing gate, we can just get another feel about the two remaining doors that we can explore. And I guess we can make sure that the linear transport has not left us, though as far as I know, it never will. It will always wait for us. Just leaves the two passageways leading down to the harbor itself. Now, the central accessway here is where most people, I think, would probably get into the facility after they've landed. And yeah, it is not only full of fog, but you could just barely tell in the distance there that there is someone waiting for us in said fog. Yeah, and don't let her looks deceive you. This kindly old lady is very dangerous, and in fact, she is right next to the ventilation controls. So the safest thing is probably going to be going in the door behind her, and then making use of this control panel here where something has caused an emergency stop. Now, directly adjacent to the central accessway is the workers' passage, where employees would probably get around having to harass or mingle with any of the paying patrons. And it is in a much worse state than the central accessway. Just completely covered in this dense fog. Almost seems to be more dense than what we're normally used to. And just like the central accessway, we can just barely make out someone waiting for us in the fog. But there was that cabinet that we started focused in on, and it was a bit hard to tell. There is something in there for us.
This isn't mine. My sister made me take it. When I work, I put this here and listen to it during breaks. It calms me down.
Sorry I didn't ask you before touching it.
My sister insists that I bring it back. It means a lot to her.
She is worried.
Well, if she's so worried, she should just say so. Guess it's all right. She is my sister, even if she is a bit twisted. She's the same age as you know.
So we have a familiar yellow spacesuit, as well as a music box and somewhat thick Aussie accent. Definitely brings to mind that one ghost we ran into on the lunar surface even more. For now, though, we probably want to figure out how to navigate this hallway, considering that both the central accessway and this passageway are occupied by ghosts, and well, it does look like there's a little bit of a device on the wall there, as well as another device that doesn't seem to be lit up, but is indeed a ventilation control. Also, with the final camera, we see that it is a returning ghostly fiend in the form of the priest. More importantly, though, it's good to keep in mind that on the opposing side of the pillars, there's another set of ventilation controls with only one of them being lit up. And it's very important to keep in mind that there are two sets of controls in this room. And that just leaves the spaceport lobby as our final point of interest. where unexpectedly we are greeted by a very haunting melody. And outside of the bit of rummage and chaos in here, you might notice a green spot on the floor, along with a diary.
Oh! Little Ruthie! Ruthie, where are you going?
And with that memory, we see that feline that we saw so very long ago in the basement area, as well as the fact that, I guess, the cat was owned by that old lady that's in the central accessway. I guess it just leaves the question, what spooked the cat, and what we can do to hopefully find the cat. For now, before we can even get down to that area, we are going to need to take care of, well, I'm assuming the priest ghost first. Don't really want to wrangle with the elderly lady just yet. But yeah, I highly recommend before entering this area that you do scout it out first. Fog in here is so thick that it would be very easy to overlook these very handy ventilation controls.
ID verified. Ventilation system activated.
And indeed, the fog was so thick in the room that you do need to hit both ventilation controls.
ID verified. Ventilation system activated.
And that does take care of our priestly problem, at least for the time being. It's just our heart meter is not going down. And in fact, there is a bit of a strange beating noise. Seems this ghost is trying to direct our attention to something back down the hallway. And you might have an idea of what he is trying to direct us towards. Especially if you did manage to watch that recording. Problem is that it looks like someone busted into the cupboard here and managed to take his music box. And it's not just a case of it being in the opposing cupboard here, it's not in here either. For right now, we don't really have any way to, I guess, find that music box or even really to understand why this ghost is just out there on the lunar surface. Just going to have to keep him in mind for the future. For now, we can head into the lobby here. And soak in more of the lovely melody of the Moonlight Sonata, as well as... yeah, I guess that was the beeping that we heard before. The work area has something of a little sensor gate in front of it. Also, that's a little bit on the nose for some of the people still stuck here, as they will be spending the rest of their lives and afterlives here. But yeah, we stumble across this purple cat diary here, and we are going to take a quick look through it. Also taking in our very, very full inventory. Still, you might already be able to guess that this is the diary of the old woman we found in the central accessway. Seems she's had a pretty tough life after her husband has passed. He managed to leave behind a very large amount of inheritance, and that also caused just a whole gaggle of vultures to swoop in to try and take her money and trick her. So she decided to go to the moon, and she is now convinced that the accident that happened with the shuttle was orchestrated by one of these people trying to get her inheritance. So she just kind of sheltered herself away in another part of the facility here, where she only had the company of her cat and the music box that, I guess, kept her cat happy, because it played her husband's favorite song. Now, the melody is definitely coming from somewhere around here. It's just no idea where it could be coming from. And while I get the impression the cat could have gone through that other door, I feel like it might be better to help that old lady before we start looking for the cat. And yeah, just very strange advertisements on the moon here. Not sure if that's some reference to some other From Software game, but yeah, if anybody knows, I'd be pretty interested. But yeah, now that we are behind the old lady, it's easy enough to get over to the control panel here.
Come on out.
I do feel slightly guilty about luring her away like that. She's definitely pretty attached to that luggage. Still, it does give us a chance to filter out all this dangerous fog.
ID verified. Ventilation system activated.
Also, not entirely sure why that ventilation control required the executive key card. Maybe because this is the more public area of the facility. Yeah, let's see what is up with this old lady.
Could you please help me find Ruthie? Find her quickly, all right? My little Ruthie, cutie pie. She follows me whenever I ring her bell. This wicked bag, it's too sturdy. My little Ruthie won't come out if I don't ring the bell. She's my only friend. Everybody else is just after her inheritance. I don't want money. All I need is hers. I can't trust anyone but her.
With that short discussion, we are able to get a clear idea how we can lure Ruthie back to her mother here. Also, you might recall that we did find that collar before with a key-shaped pendant on it. And we get a simply adorable little cat bell. So we have the means of luring the cat. Now it should be simply a matter of finding where the cat could be. Now we already kind of saw from the recording that the cat got spooked and ran off. More than likely it did run off into the door. It's only after we get attracted by the view of the moon that we see there is a shuttle that's docked outside. So it's not going to be a simple matter of fact of just going into the short hallway here. Instead, we are going to have to do our best to hunt down this feline inside of this mysterious shuttle. Also, things get pretty dark out in the void of space. But there is something just simply beautiful about it all. Now, the shuttle is a lot smaller than the craft we had initially attempted to land on the moon with. And indeed, Ruthie is somewhere on board. Still, as we all know, cats will never be on a treadmill of their own volition. So I guess we're just going to have to start scouting about and see if we can't locate her. Now in the cockpit, doesn't really seem like there are too many places for Ruthie to hide. Still, it does give us an impression about why the shuttle did happen to land here. Seems they were almost out of fuel. And on top of that, they do have a monitoring system that might be able to help us locate Ruthie. And in fact, it has an extra layer of flavor in the fact that, as opposed to the monitors on the facility, these are definitely for a Russian ship with all of its Russian alphabet. Yeah, as you might already be able to guess, this is the shuttle of the Russian crew that we've been running into over the course of the game. More importantly, though, yeah, there is our little Ruthie just chilling out on the table. I'm sure at any moment, she's probably going to knock all this stuff over. And nothing really much else to see in the final camera here. Still, now that we know where Ruthie is, should be able to just ring that bell around her and get her to follow us. Also, there are a few other odds and ends. You can find a battery or two just laying around the ship. And it seems that Ruthie is a bit skittish. Still, she just pretty much ran herself into a dead end, so we should be safe to do a little bit of reading. In case we really needed any more backstory about the Russian crew, there is this helpful crew logbook that pretty much illustrates their trajectory into their current state. They were on some deep space exploration with a crew of 6. And as far as you can tell from the logbook here, everything seemed to be going great. They even had competitive marathons on the treadmill. And it seemed to be a mostly boring excursion. Until Natalia realized that they were running dangerously low on fuel. It's then that Nikolai notices there's this moon-based building that might have some fuel waiting for them. It's just that it is mysteriously vacant of any person. Thus, they are now all dead. To make matters worse, even if we wanted to try to use their ship to escape back to Earth, I just don't know if we could find the fuel anywhere around on this facility. Still, we should probably just worry about that for later. For right now, you have to have a keen eye to find this hiding kitty cat. But once you do, you just need to ring that cute little bell. And we now have a black feline phantasm as a friend. Yeah, you don't have to worry about outrunning her. She is pretty quick and nimble on her feet. And for the most part, I kind of wish we could stay with Ruthie a lot longer. Be nice to find our fiancé and have her pet our new friend. Sadly, we don't get to spend too much time with Ruthie, even though she does manage to uncover this music box hiding underneath the bench here. It does cause Ruthie to kind of disappear. At least she isn't following us as she was before. But, I mean, since we do have that music box, we could technically go return to that poor spaceman that's just waiting outside in the cold. Problem is that you don't want to forget the fact that in that recording, it was the beeping of the security gate that caused Ruthie to bolt in the first place. Now it is a question of where she could be, and I wasn't honestly sure. In fact, I spent, I'd say, almost 4 or 5 minutes going back into the shuttle, when in reality, she was pretty nearby. Yeah, I could have sworn that I was pretty much right next to that spot when I first rang the bell, but well, it's fine now. We got back our friend. At the end, though, it was never destined to be a long-term relationship. Since we can't go into the work passageway, we are pretty much stuck in going to the central accessway, so... Well, we did help out an old lady, but we did lose a friend. with another soul free. We are rewarded with the pendant that the Russian astronaut was looking for. And while I do kind of cherish the moments I had with Ruthie, I did kind of wish her owner was a little bit less suspicious of us. Still, before we leave the spaceport, we do want to make sure and return that music box. Now, if you're wondering how we're supposed to get the music box out to the astronaut there on the surface, it just so happens that right nearby is a very small airlock. And it just so happens to be big enough that we can fit the music box safely inside. Seems though that we are not completely done with that ghost just yet, as it wanders off into the vastness of the moon's surface. And I do feel like I know exactly where he might be headed. For now though, we are not going to be worrying about that. It's going to be for later. Instead, now that we have that pendant, we should head back to the spaceport and see if we can't help out that female astronaut's request.
Thank you. My mother gave me this when I left home. She said to put a picture of my loved one in it. Good. Six of us came here together, but while we were running away from that monster, we began to separate. Our commander told us to wait here. We cannot communicate through the radio. Commander, everyone, I hope everyone is okay.
Now, if you recall, so very long ago when we first met Nikolai, he did have a broken radio right next to him.
This is our host radio. No! Why did Nikolai? The commander trusted Nikolai most of all. I wonder if everyone is okay. If we could only fix the radio. I know Christina could fix it. You've been searching this facility? If you see anyone, please show this to them. Our commander gave this to us before as a proof of trust. If you show this, they will trust you. I know Christina can fix the host radio.
So we now have an idea of someone who can fix the radio, as well as some sign of trust that we can probably show to a sleepy cosmonaut to show them the signs of their missing commander.
This is our commanders. Did you see our commander? I had better let them know right away.
Yeah, with Igor now popped up into action, that means that we could enter the final area of the processing plant here, the material storage room. Inside, we come across something of a meeting between the three cosmonauts here.
Now only if we could use this radio.
Did you see Sergei? He has left. We do not know where he went or what he is doing. We are worried.
Did you see our commander? We can't communicate with him.
And via process of elimination, we can assume that this is Christina, who should be able to fix the broken radio.
This is a host radio. Is it broken?
Nah, I think so. Looks like basic junk.
Don't worry. This is Anna. It can be fixed right away.
When we return, we'll have exchanged this with a new one.
Hey, you two. It's fixed. It should work now. Commander. Commander. Can you hear us? Over.
Who is this? Is everyone all right?
Commander, we are all right. This is Igor.
Yes, I'm right as well. We were lucky.
Commander, this is Christina. We are all okay here.
Good. Everyone's all right.
Commander, where are we now? Let us meet somewhere.
Are you in the rest area next to the center hub? Where are you guys?
We are at the work site. We will start heading there now.
Affirmative. I'll wait for you here. See you soon.
Good to know you are okay, Commander.
Yes, I know that you are alright.
Since we know the commander Sergei is okay, we can go now.
Yes.
All right, then. Beautiful as it is.
Right. Let's go find the commander.
And with that, we have now managed to save 4 members of the 6-person crew. And we also now know the location of the commander, as well as we now have a working host radio in our inventory for him. Still, I would be a bit remiss before I leave this area, because there was one recording I managed to miss when I was first going through this area, and that's because it is pretty easy to miss in this room.
I wonder if he will be alright by himself.
I don't know. He may be sleeping.
Then why don't you go? You are the one who started talking about the watch, right?
You are slowly turning into Nikolai. So serious. You do not have to remind me. When my shift is up, I will go. It will be okay if that man wakes up before then.
I hope our commander is all right.
I wonder. He helped us get away. He is trying too hard to be a hero. If he does not return, we cannot go anywhere.
Dmitri.
Damn it. Just tell us if he is alive.
Yes, we just need to find that out.
So not a terribly large amount to glean from that recording. Just a continued look at their strife and confusion from being separated. But from all those positive tones that they've had about their leader, I'm pretty psyched to meet him. And, well, we can finally meet him in this connecting hallway leading to the observatory. I suppose this is called the rest area, but we see a familiar wandering spirit that we've met so many times before.
Nikolai, where did you go? Natalia, why can you not communicate? Is the host radio not fixed?
And indeed, that radio is. Hopefully you made sure to bring it with you.
This is Nikolai. No. He is dead? Nikolai is dead? I cannot believe it. He was a fine man. Was more responsible than anyone I know. He was the most honorable among men. Nikolai, why?
Commander, can you hear us?
Natalia, Nikolai is dead. Nikolai, he is gone. I cannot believe he is dead.
Commander, please hold yourself together. Where are you now? Did you communicate with Christina and the others?
Natalia,
Commander, please stay there. I will find Christina and the others.
Natalia,
Let us go home. Let us get out of here now and return to Earth.
I am sorry. I am not myself. Never thought you would be cheering me up. You have grown up since your early days.
Commander, you remembered me from then?
I am in the rest area that leads to the energy section. Christina and others should be here any minute now. Natalia, I will wait for you. Let us all go home together. Natalia, she's such a strong young woman now. She was always crying back then. Nikolai also had a few good moments. I have a favor to ask of you. I want you to find my pocket watch. I dropped it somewhere in the facility. Give her that watch. I think I traveled around the residential area. You should be able to find it with this. I am a little tired. They are all fine. They will be okay without me.
And so, as the commander disappears off into the ether, he hands us a new key card, as well as showing a bit of his true sensitive nature. So next time, hopefully you will join me as we put this card to good use and see if we can't save the final member of his crew and find our fiancé.